And we are live. So welcome to ScaleUp Heroes, where we bring the best minds with the best real-life experiences when it comes to scaling up businesses. They are heroes that took on difficult odds and lived to tell the tale. I'm Mike, and I'll be your host today, as Wendy Quinterell is not able to join today. I would like to invite you to visit our page at ScaleUpAcademy.io to learn more about us. Today, we are discussing scaling up with Thor, Angelo, the CEO at OrderYOYO from Copenhagen, and Olli, Nokso-Koivisto, the CEO at LeadDesk from Helsinki.
LeadDesk.
From LeadDesk. My apologies, and it was well written down here. My apologies, Olli, for that. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to discuss scaling up with you. So we have agreed that we will discuss how to go from 11 to 100 employees, roughly from 1 million to 10 million US dollars ARR. And there are some interesting metrics that I usually like to share, which is only 4% of the companies surpass the 1 million US dollars in revenue. Only 0.4% surpass the 10 million. And less than 0.04% the 100 million. So that's why we call the podcast ScaleUp Heroes, because these are really the heroes who are scaling. It's really, really difficult. So maybe we would start by a brief introduction. Olli, for my apologies, let's start with LeadDesk, and then we will go to Thor with OrderYOYO.
Yeah, so introduction on LeadDesk. So LeadDesk was established in 2010. And we provide the #1 contact center software for the Northern Europe and the DACH region. We've got about 12,000 agents doing their daily work on our system every week. And we are now past $10 million mark. So
0.4%.
Yeah. And happy to be there. For my past, I've been, I studied coding when I was really little, began as an entrepreneur when I was 16. My first company, done a exit some time back, and been on a management board in a company which went public in the IT service segment in Finland. And then I joined LeadDesk in 2013.
Awesome. So we have today serial entrepreneurs. So because Thor also built a company before. So Thor, feel free to introduce yourself too.
Yeah. So I did my first company in 2000, and it took me 12 years to get to 7-8 European countries and 100 employees. I sold my shares in that. Had to search for a new idea for a couple of years, and then. 3.5 years ago, I stumbled across OrderYOYO, and I went into that, invested, and now I'm the CEO of that. And this company is much more, venture capital fueled, so we can move faster. I now know kind of how to build a company, so now we can go faster and hopefully make less mistakes. Still make some. And OrderYOYO, actually, we use LeadDesk in our company when we call out to customers. We have 2,000 restaurants on our system, and what we do is kind of like Shopify, but only for a very small niche, which is a takeaway. We make sure that a takeaway gets their own website and their own app. So we make app for every restaurant. So we have 2,000 apps in App Store on behalf of our restaurants, and we believe in just normal e-commerce should also appear for or be for takeaway, where they of course have their own website and their own app. And then they can maybe buy new customers from Google and so on. But returning customers should, of course, go to their own website. So we are trying to educate the industry it doesn't have to be all Just Eat and the others. You should really own your own customers. So that's what we do.
Got it. Thank you very much for the introductions, Olli and Thor. So let's start with the first main subject that we wanted to discuss: how to go from 11 to 25, or maybe starting by discussing what you think are the main thresholds that you have faced more difficult to go from. We have selected this from 11 to 25, from 25 to 50, and from 50 to 100. does it resonate with you, Olli, when you were growing? These are the main milestones, and when things change a lot, or would you select another threshold to discuss?
Yeah, so I think from of course getting up to 10, but maybe the first real threshold is like 20 to 25 people. I think you picked it quite well. This of course varies a little bit by industry and so on. But I think this is like especially for a product company, this is the golden time. So it's when you have your co-founder there, when you are still under 1 million, not so many customers yet, then you can move very agile and really like just concentrate on building the product, concentrate on doing the sales. And it's the phase where you can still break things and like still like run as fast as you can. You've got all your friends around you. You know everybody so well that you don't really have to like put that much time and effort into those kind of things. So everybody around you is fairly happy, and you still got your own pool where you can recruit from and so on. So I think like getting to up to 20-25 people, I would just for any company reaching there, just concentrate on getting your sales up. So getting the figures up there in order to have enough customer base to validate your product. That's also the time when you should pivot and like all the growing pains should be there. I don't know, what do you think, so is that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know, exactly if you can say from 10 to 20 to 30 or 50 people, but you're right. There's something happening when you don't know everyone in the company and you don't know everything that goes on. So when you have 10 people, you almost know every customer that starts because you're like happy for everyone that comes in. You know everything that we are building and everything. And then when you get to 30, 40 people, all of a sudden there is someone hired that you don't even know the name of, which is in the beginning embarrassing, but then you just realize that's how it is. And then you also go from looking at every customer to more look at, overall data and statistics. Because when you have thousands of customers and we have maybe 1 million different end users in our system ordering pizza, and not every day, but every month. And then you can't just look at every one of the things that are going on. You have to look at the overall. So that's a very big change.
Got it. And what do you think, Thor, about what are the main challenges from going from 11 to 25 on your previous businesses and on your business today?
Yeah. So for me, of course, if you look at employees, there's something called middle managers. So when I started OrderYOYO, I was the only one experienced, and then I got a lot of great young people in, and they were really working hard. But at some point, you need to get more management resources into because you can't cover everything. So there's like all of a sudden there is both maybe not a layer under you, but you have to delegate management to someone on your same level, like C-level. So you get a CFO, you get a CMO, you get a CSO, stuff like that. And then you have to leave that. So that's going to be a key hire, which are super important at that point. When you're getting a lot of young people, some grow and some don't, but it's fine. But at some point you need to work on you work with the organization all the time. And that is a one big thing in itself to make sure you have the right people at the right places. But for me, when I look at the growth of a company, I see, in the beginning, you have an idea. And then what I very much focus on is what I call the product market fit phase that can take years. And often when you look at big companies that you're impressed with, like Airbnb and so on, if you go back, they spent years, finding the right way to go into the market. Like, are we going to rent out rooms or a couch, or is it the whole apartment? And find out exactly how the product fits the market. And I think that can still happening when you're 10 people, because you can change and you can move around and you can easily, change and pivot and so on. We did the same. We pivoted 2 major pivots in our first year where we really changed target group. It wasn't always takeaway. We thought we were going to start with cafes, which didn't work. But when you get to 50 people, you can't just pivot. You can't just say, oh, tomorrow we'll do something else. So as bigger you get, the more secure, you have to be on where you want to go. So for me, there is a product market fit phase that probably could be until 10, maybe 15 people. After that, you start hiring people for specific things. And then you have to know that you're hitting the right market, the right product. And then you go into a growth phase where you also get, more funding if you want that. And they only want to do that if they're, if you know where you're going. So I think for me, it's more like product market fit phase where you can, go around and pivot a bit, and then you nail it and you show your numbers that, we don't churn restaurants, and we can easily get them. We know how to get them, go to market. Like we use LeadDesk software to call our customers, and we know we can book meetings, and we have sales guys following up. And when we get the model of how to grow, then you can, spend more money on growing. So for me, it's those phases.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom there. It's after you've got the product market fit, and that's about like you can't have more than 20 people before that for the precise reasons described there. But and then as you said, then the SaaS metrics actually start to kick in, because then you have to start understanding the SaaS metrics behind there and how does your bottom line work. And for myself, if I would do something differently, I would hire a CFO earlier. I think that it's a key. CFO is a key player in understanding. Then, like when you have the product and you have customers, and you can scale, and then getting the CFO at that phase really would have helped us. So would have if we got that a bit earlier. The other thing I think is then what you remember mentioned is the people. So up until that point, it's pretty much easier with hiring and all that part. But then again, going forward from there, having a good resourcing on the HR side, also then helping out with the new managers and really developing the company culture. And how we do things together. I'm not talking about what they call in Finnish, they call it HR mama, but rather like a really like a partner with the business in order to then help in scaling up.
Got it. So trying to summarize this first part of the discussion. So going from the 2 founders or 3 founders or even the solo founder from 10 employees, it's really about product market fit. Then from 11 to 25, you start needing to understand what is your strategy to be even more focused, which could be very counterintuitive in the sense that you think, okay, now I'm growing, maybe I need to open up new layers, new products, new segments, and maybe it's not now the moment if you want to scale. If you start adding complexity, it would be difficult. So from 10 to 25, it should be still full speed on sales, right? So having a very good executive or even the founders very involved on sales, it would be important. But then after the 25 to the 50, starting having a management team, not maybe a full management team, as in when we go to 100, starts being important. Olli also talking about having a CFO and the HR at that stage. So pretty interesting. And now how to go from 50 to 100. So what were the main shifts that you at this stage? And even let's focus a little bit more on the people side of the business and the way you structured your team around you, because in the first stages, it was, as you said, almost about delegating tasks and having team members around you doing specific parts of the business. And now it's mainly about delegating functions, and sometimes even delegating functions that you are very good at, like sales or marketing in the beginning, which could be a little bit difficult for the founders and the CEO themselves. Did you face it as difficult, let the control go and finding out people to start leading functions? And what were the first functions that you decided to delegate to your executive team? So maybe Olli, we can start with you.
Yeah, so well, firstly, if you think about it, when you have 50 people, so if that's at the end of this like scale, so 50 people is like 7 times 7 in agile. Thinking 7 is typically like a good figure for team size. So if you have seven managers who each have a team of 7, so that's about 50. So that's some rule that's about where you have to be. Of course, you might have 5 times 10 or whatever, but that's not important. So then again, scaling up, you have two problems there. You have to be fast, but at the same time, scaling up with new people and getting new, especially new very senior people in, or quite senior people, they always bring their luggage with them. So they always have a history and they always have a management style they liked and so on. It's very important to get a good fit on the management team, and so you can't really hire them too fast. So you have to have a clear plan in your head that, okay, so I have to have this kind of an organization. So my organization is going to have these functions. It's going to have these people here, and then which is most crucial for me at which stage, and then at the same time, which can I do like with the current team, just maybe not having the perfect fit at the time, but having like a good enough fit for a certain period of time. But it's important to have the plan. So what would your organization look like? And then of course that's not something you know for certain, because of course then there's other kind of, you can't really pivot in in the customer sense that you change your customers and all that because you've got a sizable business already. But what you can do is of course pivot then in the organization a bit, and I really just suggest that you do that as early as possible. So you might have some departments that you end up then merging, or then you see that something's not working out and so on. So that's something you should really be very conscious of. But it's important to have some model and talk about the model with your mentors and with other startups and so on, and try to structure it around some model that also then you can communicate to your own people, because it's important that everybody's got to buy in that this is the kind of organization we want. Because naturally, when you bring in then middle management, that means that somebody who's going to be who's previously worked with you is not going to be working with you anymore. They're going to be working with some new guy coming from some large corporation, not understanding the culture and so on. So then you really have to buy in that, hey, this is a good thing. And these, from my experience, you should you should expect that about even as high as 50% of the people who were there working for that department and were really happy before the manager was hired might then turn around, because it just changes things. You have to start having processes, and it's not as agile anymore, and it's not the same feeling maybe.
Got it. And what were the main pillars on your executive team when you were going with a 50 people organization? So what were for you the main pillars of your executive team at that stage?
For me, sales is always first. So I love sales, but sales is always first. So having that part and having a very good team in sales, both in the executive part, but also in the management, that's been always my number one focus. Then other than from outside sales, then for me, it's really important to have the product and engineering part well thought of, and that is something that we've worked a lot on. So because that includes not just the managers, but also the architects, and there's a lot of outside management things that you have to think about in the leadership on that half, and then the union between, for me, So the sales and engineering is basically the core of the business. But then who are my business partners? My business partners are then finance and talent. We call HR talent because we don't have resources. We have only champions, of course. So finance and talent are really my business partners then in working and figuring out the best way to both develop our metrics and then also educate and develop our people.
Got it. Thanks, Olli. And Thor, what do you think what were the main pillars for you at that stage of the company when you were 50?
Yeah, so to build up your C-level team is very important. It doesn't happen overnight, but you should have a plan, you know, what you need, and so you keep looking for that. So for me, I was the only senior manager for a long time, but then the first one I got in was a CTO. I'm not a developer. I do understand the code and so on, but I'm not like that. So the first very important high level we got into our company was a CTO, and he took over. This is 2.5 years ago. And he did really well. So that was the first area that I could didn't have to look at. And there's also a big change where you have to accept that someone else is taking over, even though you think you know better. Then you simply just gotta let someone else take care of it and maybe do it his way and change fundamentally how you think things are. But he knows better, so you have to trust that. So CTO was important, and then I got a CSO in, and again, sales is important. So get someone in there to take responsibility of that. And also we were in a phase of development. So I needed a senior person to come in and help us invent how to sell. And it wasn't until half a year ago that we really understood exactly how to sell. Now we are getting more country specific sales manager in, because now we know exactly how to sell, and we know our KPIs, and we know the recipe of how to sell. How many meetings do we need? How many salespeople do we need? How much does a salesperson have to do every day? So now we have the recipe of exactly how to scale and sell. So that's why we just need someone to follow KPIs. Then, as Olli also said, the CFO, I was very lucky of getting a very young guy in very early who did not have experience, but was very good at numbers and Excel and so on. And he was very strict and thorough, and with all the numbers, which was it was a pain, but it was a good thing, which I'm not. So he was really good and very young and everything, but he didn't have the last 20% of being on the board and so on. So I got a CFO in 8 months ago, and that really again changed a lot. I can just completely leave all finance to him, and don't have to think about that. So I'm the CEO, and it should be, I should be in a situation where there's no need for me. Of course, there always is, but you should really look at it like that you have a CSO, you have a CFO, a CTO. So what's left? And then of course there's always problems and changing of things or strategic, opportunities. But I always had this idea that whenever you have some work that can be described, you should have someone do it. The things you can't describe is what's left for you to fix. And then it's just a matter of what level you need it. Is it some invention and so on, or is it, do you know how to do it? So you just need someone to follow the KPIs and the goals, or do you need someone to help you build the goals? That's, the difference between what level you need. So, yeah.
And Thor, you talked about the CTO, and when do you think is the right moment to start separating a little bit the CTO and the CPO? Or do you think that this role should be in the same person in a certain way? So
no, for us, we don't. Yeah, so we don't have it under the same. So I have a head of products and I have a CTO, and they are both under me. So and it should be continued like that. I find it very important to have this different ways of separate things. I like the battle, between them, the discussion of priority. I think it's important that comes out. It's super important that it's not like put under someone and then just one guy reporting. So I like, that it's separated and they both refer to me.
Got it. And Olli, do you also have a CPO and a CTO, or head of products and a CTO, or it's both functions are under one person?
At the moment, both functions are under one person, but that is not the perfect way. That is since we changed our strategy last year, now we are growing fast and also profitable. So that is one of the investments we'll be doing actually this year now.
Got it.
But at the moment, we have one person here.
And it's curious. No one is talking about marketing. Why? Maybe Olli. Thor. Yes.
You mean marketing?
Yes, marketing.
Well, we haven't had the need for marketing that much. We are a business-to-business company that help restaurants, but we also do their marketing on their behalf. So we actually have a lot of marketing towards business consumer, but we do it in the brand of the restaurant. I just hired a CMO. He starts in 2 weeks from now. Very, very senior guy to take over the business to consumer marketing. Until now, our way to the market has not been marketing and not that much lead gen from Google and so on. We do it the old-fashioned way, where we are calling and we are selling like real old-fashioned business to business, instead of just waiting for leads coming in. But we are now stepping up in that game, and we are to get a person only, doing business to business, not so much marketing, because, when you look at business to business marketing, you might as well just call lead gen, because that's what it's all about. It's not branding and so on. It's all about getting leads. And we get some, but we don't get, 1/10 of what we could get. So, but yeah, I just got in the CMO, but it's actually mostly to help our restaurants do better marketing in their name.
Got it.
I think also this, like why marketing wasn't mentioned before, is that because we talked about a little bit of a smaller scale. I agree with Thor there that in the scale, like when you are under 50 people, marketing is pretty much lead gen. Then going past the 50, then it of course depends a little bit on the business. But for us, marketing has become a very strategic point and a focus point as well, because then when we are growing to different markets, who knows the customers better than even sales in the new market? It's marketing, which then helps us, for example, now scout out new markets. We are scouting out Spain and the UK, where we are now, and that's basically on our table. That's on marketing, and then also it's also then joint effort with the product and product team to look at like where is the product market fit, and what are the trends, and what kind of new things are happening on the market in general. But then like purely like marketing as a marketing under 50, with organization under 50 people, in my experience, has been lead gen, and it's not a strategic function, but rather a sales support function. And then growing past 50, then it changes.
Got it. And so let's go to the last stage from 50 to 100. Of course, then we could discuss the later stages. But from 50 to 100, what was the most important and the most challenging for you in your business? Thor, would you like to come back?
Yeah. So I think when you hire managers and C-level and so on, it's very challenging. You do a lot of interviews and so on, and you need a recruiter to do personal tests and so on. So that is how you do that. When you scale from 50 to 100, you need to be able to hire people working on the ground doing something. When I had the LanguageWire, we had 25 project managers and we had 20 sales guys. The same kind of person that just did the same over and over. So what I find important is that you make a system that is easy to use, They know exactly what to do every day. And that's why you can hire easier, normal people. It doesn't have to be champions, just normal people that, has the contact to the customers and just need to do so and so on every day. So if you have to hire super brilliant people from 50 to 100, it's going to be super hard. It's going to be super expensive. So, I mean, the most beautiful thing would be that if you didn't have to hire anyone, then you have a truly scalable company. You can just double your sales with no more people. That would be super. But you need people, you need customer support and so on. So to me, it's important that you can actually embrace many kinds of people, because you have a great system and you have a great model, and you can easily explain to someone in support or someone in account management exactly what to do, clear goals. So they also get a great job where they know exactly what to do. They can themselves measure, how they're doing. And we are building this just now. I mean, we're not completely there. In my old company, we were completely there. We had, as I said, 25 project managers. They knew exactly how, what to do, but they could also in the system see how they were doing, also to compare with the others, but just for themselves, they could see, how much money am I making to the company, how well am I doing, and how can I improve? And I find that very important. So even scalability in the way you handle your employees, I think is important.
And Olli, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree on Thor's point there. It's totally like it's superstars until then, but then you really have to. It's a superstar organization. You have to really concentrate on the organization and build it so that it's scalable in the sense that you can have normal people without the superstar or like without the superpowers coming in, and this really requires you to have good processes, and you to educate people and to appreciate that there's a lot of built-in knowledge in the organization already in all the ways that you work in, and you really have to educate people in those. And you also have to have ownership in the organization, so that it's just not just your direct reports who have ownership, but rather you build a culture of ownership and of caring about your customers and caring about your business. And of course, to be able to care about them, then of course it's what Thor here earlier said, that then you have to have the KPIs open. And how we have tackled this is that we've really tried to open everything up. So even our weekly meetings, management team weekly meetings, we open all the material up to our employees so they can see what's happening around them, how we are doing, and also see that what is important and what's going on at the moment. And then also it's for myself, the hardest part has been the over communication. That you really need to over communicate, because when you've said it once, maybe 25% of the people have heard it. You have to say it 7, 8, 9 times in order to get your message through and people to really appreciate your strategy and your mission, vision, and targets. And it's just so important at this stage. So I think like from 50 people upwards, then you really become a real organization, and it's it's not playing around anymore, like pivoting, and then you have to have strict guidelines for certain things, and then ownership on other things, and schedules and workflows and all that. And it's like people working together, which you have to concentrate in. But then it's hard, but it's very different from the previous in my experience. And here I think the biggest learning also is that up until this point you can fluctuate on your strategy. you can more build on, and we had an agile strategy, for example, where we shift focus on a yearly basis earlier. But at this stage, when you are doing, now we're doing the 10 million per year, and we are focusing on also being profitable. It means that you really can't be shifting around. You have to have a clear strategy for 2-3 years onwards, to also then of course provide the backing to the financiers, because it's previously you could, if something went wrong, you could just work a little bit harder, or your management team could just work a little bit harder to cover it, like cover the costs and all that. But at this scale, it's like then the problems are always also larger, so you have to do some risk management and think about those parts, and that's why you have to have a solid, well sort of strategy behind what you're doing.
And when do you think that still when Androids we need to start having a strong third layer management or mid management layer, which is really accountable, who takes ownership? So when does the importance of the mid management starts to be really relevant when scaling up? From what stage, in your opinion?
I always have the 7 rule, so about 7 people always, but in my thinking, everybody should feel ownership. So we should have only committed employees, and you can't have committed employees if you don't let them have ownership of whatever they are doing and whatever they are responsible for. Ownership comes from knowing what's expected and what success looks like. If you know if you are an employee, let's say you are doing, you are, for example, coding a certain part of the product, then you really should know what success looks like, and you should get credit for it, not just inside your team, but publicly also inside the company. If you are in support and you've got really, and if in support, for example, you get really good grades from your customers, so they like you, the service you are providing them, you should get credit them, and not just inside the team, but widely. And it's it's culture of commitment, ownership, and giving thanks that is, I think, very important, at least for us at the moment, to be growing up and really like building the culture we want.
Got it. So very early on, and as soon as you will start having the first managers, helping them to own their own territories. Thor, do you want to add something?
I think I like the rule of 7 people. I agree that it's very hard to manage more than that. I think if you're 10 or 20, I think it's all about, if you start having 2 or 3 people doing the same, you could easily make one of them a leader of the other 2. So, but if you have 10 people doing different things, then it makes sense that they do their own and have their own ownership. So for me, it's, the management is when you have an area, something where you have a couple of people working on the same project or even doing the same, then you have one, lead project manager, helping the others. So, yeah.
So today we talked a lot about people. We didn't talk too much about communication and execution, neither strategy and cash, but it's impossible to cover all the topics. We need to go for another conversation. But before wrapping up, I would like to ask a final question, which is, what were one of the most challenging or one of the most successful that you felt really well as the CEO role, because it's a really lonely place to be. So what do you think were the best moment for you and the most challenging moment going from 11 to 100 employees? Olli, would you like to start? So we'd give some time to Thor to think. Or even Thor, if you already know, please feel free to move forward.
Well, when I look at my company, I have 2. First of all, I like to say that the over communication, I completely agree with that. You think you communicate something once and then people don't get it. Because it's so much in your head, but nothing there. So I agree with that one. But that was not a super challenge. It's just a key discovery is that you really need to over communicate the goals and so on. For me, what was really hard in our company is that, when you start getting customers, it's great. You have a lot of customers, they're happy. But to make the company scalable and unit economics has been a huge challenge for us. It's a completely other game. So one thing is that you invent a product, you get happy customers, they even want to pay for it. That's great. Going from there and then make a hyper growth company that is, where you can attract investment, it's much harder than I thought. Seed investment is easier, great idea. Here's a little money from a business angel here and there. That's easier. But getting a real venture capital company, they really do their due diligence, and they really want to make sure that if they put in $1 million here, then 10 comes out, and you have to show the numbers that prove that. And that has taken me like 1.5 years to get us there. I thought 1.5 years ago, we had a great case and look at the numbers, it looks great. But then when they really dig in, they can see that there's high churn, or for us, it was more like the CAC versus lifetime value was not completely in sync. And then we had to fight that and find out how to sell cheaper or, get better prices and so on. So for me, the unit economics, getting the company from past, product market fit and get it into a unit economics where, all the matrix was right, the CAC and the lifetime value and the churn and everything looked right. That was a completely other game than I expected it to be. One thing is to have a great idea and get some customers and so on. That in itself is tough. But then you nail that. And then if you really want to go into hyper growth, then you really got to know your numbers and get the CFO in and all that. That was one thing for me. Another thing for me is the organization, to build it in the right pace, not too fast, not too early. You make some very expensive hires. So when can you afford that? And then I would say now we were a couple of co-founders. I think what is really hard is that if you are 4 co-founders, and I actually had that in both my companies, if you have 3 or 4 co-founders, you may split up, you take, you're the CEO and you can do the HR and you can do the finance and so on. But then when you grow, you find people that can do that better, of course, because you are just, a startup person that are good at starting up. But at some point you need a real CFO, maybe you even need a real CEO, so I think what is very hard is that the founders of a company have to realize that they may not, be the C-level all the way. And that has happened in my company, also in both companies, that we came to a point where in my first company, we were 3 guys starting it. And one of the guys were the administrative kind of person. He did the HR and finance and so on. But then we hired a finance, genius, and we had an HR director. And then he was like, so what's left for me, kind of, and I think you as a founder, you have to be how do you say that, humble enough, to say, yeah, someone can always do a better job at a specific area than me, probably. And that has been hard for me to, arrange that, to tell a co-founder, I think we should get a CTO taking over this because he is better than you. That's hard, So I think that challenge of co-founders, and maybe even me, maybe the board will point at me at sometimes, say, I think we should get a real CEO at some point. Yeah, maybe. So I think that constant change of organization is actually very hard.
Fantastic. Thanks, Thor. Olli, you have some time to think.
Yeah. So, I looking back at the last 5 years, I think because it's been a good success and a really, really nice success. I think the hardest part for me myself was that we grew, people-wise, we grew up until about 110 employees. And then we started looking at, okay, what's the future for LeadDesk and so on, and we saw ourselves more as a growth company than a startup at that point, which also then involved bringing the profits in, or not the profits per se, but like bringing the cash flows positive instead of burning the investor monies only. And at that point, at that point, then scaling the business up at the same time that having to scale the organization down, and managing that, and at the same time keeping with the profits. That was both organizationally wise hard, and then personally, of course, stressful. Then again, I think coming out of that, we measure our employee NPS on a like ongoing basis, and then looking at 6 months after, we sort of started seeing a rise in our NPS, and our NPS, employee NPS, went way higher, and is way higher than it was before. And I think this really, like this organizational crisis, in the sense, also helped us to focus on the strategy and really on the important things. And going out of that, I think it was a hard project, but at the same time, it was so rewarding that that I think that must be.
Great reflections to end the conversation. Thank you so much, Olli and Thor. Thanks also for the audience who has been watching us at ScaleUp Heroes. Visit our page at scaleupacademy.io to learn more about scaling up. If you find these live shows valuable, please hit that like button and share today's show. Your host, Randy Cottrell, is back next week. I'm sure you will join, as we will be talking about scaling marketing with Force Manager, Olli, Universe, and Chineta. Awesome scale-ups from Barcelona, Munich, Amsterdam, and Oslo. So have an inspiring week and keep scaling.